Mike and Mark, how you doing, man?
Good, buddy. Good.
We've had
Start of a new year, 2020, and we're online.
I pretty much, like you did, I think, fucked off for a month. I didn't do shit last month.
Is that right?
I took the whole month just to not do. I mean, things were still happening, but I myself didn't really do shit. I didn't go to any events. I didn't do any blogging. I didn't do any.
Yeah.
I didn't do shit. I just took a vacation. It was a good time of year to do it, and now it's like, fuck, gotta go back to work. So big ramping back up, and all of a sudden my calendar's filling back up again, and it's getting right back where it was. But I think I'm going to do that. I think every year, that kind of December, January time frame when things are a little quiet, I'm just going to shut the fuck down.
Yeah.
I mean,
interesting.
You did it for the whole month, right?
I did it for 3 weeks, but I've already booked this year from mid-December to the end of January 2021, 6 weeks. That's going to be the standard from now on. 6 weeks. I'm going to have all of January off. Half of December is going to be my standard kind of over that kind of, because it's summer here in New Zealand, right? So best time of the year, it's midsummer. Hello, Rachel. Hello, Danny. Good to have you join us today.
I don't have that up on my screen, but
you don't have the chit chat. Yeah, I've got a couple of folks jumped on.
I'll do that while you entertain
our first of the year. Well, while you do that, actually, what I'll do is I'll bring up Rachel's question. She said here, "Hi, Mark. I'm holidaying a monthly workshop in Office 365 applications and demoing business use cases with them. It's been going better than I could ever imagine. People are seeing the power of the platform, and I definitely would not have stepped out into this if it wasn't for your lessons, blah, blah, blah." Cool. I recently was asked a question by an AI programmer, what I think you could help me with. Could someone use dev environment to create a solution like Flow, PowerApps, etc., and sell it? My first thought is no. You would want to have to join the ISV and partner program, and then I thought I'd recall the discussion on membership. Okay, so there's the question. My opinion is, so the question is, could you build an ISV solution without being in the ISV program, etc.? So you're an AI developer in this case, has asked the question, obviously must have an idea, probably doesn't have a business model or a go-to-market plan behind it, but it's a technical question. Could you use the dev license? It's the community license, I think it is, right? Or a single license without being in those programs. And my thought on it is absolutely. I just had a company and a guy actually pitch me his ISV solution in last December, and it was 100% running on a on-premise deployment of Dynamics in his case. There's nothing stopping you doing that. There's nothing stopping you using any of the tool sets to building out your idea until it's at a point, maybe at an MVP point, that you want to go to market with it. Yes, then Microsoft does provide a marketing machine around the ISV program, but at the moment, there's no restrictions on sideloading. It's been the standard model for the last 15 plus years of adding a solution into somebody else's environment. So as long as you can turn that into a package or a solution file, there's absolutely no reason. You can use any tool you want to be able to do that. So that's just the technical answer without covering the business side of running or selling an ISV product.
So, I had been predicting that they were going to, and some people had even said it was a desire and a goal to block side loading, to eliminate side loading. Everything I have to go through AppSource. But I was actually on a phone call the other day with someone you and I just spoke about, which we can't name, but who would know, who said that he doesn't foresee them stopping side loading. That instead, what they're going to try and do is make the benefit of going through AppSource high enough that you would not want to side load. And this will be more than just marketing benefits, it'll be technical benefits, a licensing construct that you could just tap into. I mean, I've seen ISVs out there build a simple solution, and then they spend 90% of the energy around it trying to lock it down with licensing. And if that construct was already provided by Microsoft through this door, along with revenue collection, along with all of it. I mean, when you sideload, you don't avoid the obligation to pay Microsoft. You just have to self-report.
Yeah.
But now you also have to have your own mechanics for collecting revenue, subscriptions, updating. So I think Microsoft seems to be, and it's probably because it's too much work, but the other side of that is it feels like they've decided, you know what, we're gonna make it too appealing for an ISV to go through AppSource and give them too many tools to make it easier for them to do it. Where sideloading, eventually it'll just go away on its own. It won't be blocked or prevented. It's just nobody's going to want to do it. You know?
Yeah, and the fact is, the person that you're talking to about this, the fact that they are saying they don't even envision sideloading, that means it's at least 24 months to 36 months out, right? There's no way that's on a backlog that's in the present tense if they're not even thinking about doing that enforcement. But what I find interesting,
so many things on their plate, way too many things on their plate.
Yeah. So
it's a lot easier. It's a lot. I mean, they need to make these investments in AppSource anyway.
Yeah.
To open that up, they need to put in the licensing machine in there for people to tap into, revenue, all that. They need to put all that stuff in there themselves to open it up.
Danny, what do you mean, Danny? Tell us, what do you mean? He's saying he noticed that Steve looks a bit different. Must be that all-round count.
My carved facial hair. Probably. And my thinness, my face is getting thinner. All of these things happen when you become single again. So
yeah, Rachel, yeah, definitely. You know, getting an AppSource listing is important around the marketing side of it, and you know, making it deployable. And as Steve said, there's going to be a lot more investment in that area. So absolutely, I mean, you know, with what I'm doing with SalesSpark, we're got all in on AppSource. We you know, we're going to make sure that we're front and center on that, because we do see it as a tool to market, and particularly their test drive functionality. It's a great way for our partners to actually demo using our assets rather than theirs. So demoing the way, you know, that makes the product looks the best possible. So I agree with that.
I feel almost guilty about things I've said about AppSource. I keep talking about it's coming. Frankly, even today, AppSource, it still isn't doing shit.
No.
It's a market. You know, it's like putting an ad up on the back of a building facing nothing at the moment. It's posted, but nothing's happening. Now they've got their ISV Connect, which is a new conference. So I was on the Dynamics ISV PAC, Partner Advisory Council, which is where they were addressing some of these issues for a short period of time. But there were only 20 of us on that PAC, and there's a lot more ISVs. So they decided, you know what, we're gonna disband that 20-person PAC and replace it with a 200-person private invitation event for ISVs to get, you know, make it a little bigger event. And that happens next week, Monday through Wednesday. So by the next call, well, not the next one, but the one after, you know, I should have some more information on where that stuff's progressing. And of course, I took the last month off, so I hadn't really had my finger on the pulse. But I'm very eager to hear about some of the plans here in this upcoming week.
Yeah, I mean, the roadmap, what must be due to be announced shortly.
That's probably what the purpose of this event or timing for this event is.
The next release wave.
Let's blast a roadmap to these 200, and if they all throw up all over it, then we'll think about that. And if they're all good with it, then we'll release it. So yeah. I mean, that's what they used to do with
Benedict has joined us. Just give a shout out to Benedict. He's joined us today on the call. Danny's asked, do we have any insights on the Power Platform Architect certification, MB600? There's MB400 as well. So what I found out this week is that the courses are being developed right now. They're actually being written, and therefore once they are published, they will go live on Microsoft Learn. That's where you can expect to see them drop. Microsoft have absolutely committed to Microsoft Learn being the environment for all this content. So watch this space. The exams come first, the content follows. Chicken and egg kind of scenario here. So therefore, yeah, it's an interesting way to do it, but there's so much new content being created at the moment. They're putting the certification in place because it drives so many other things around the partner ecosystem, and then the actual content creation here is catching up. So
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
that's
last
funny.
year the exams were written 3 months before the actual content was written, because I was involved in writing both, and I know there was that separation.
You know, my strategy for exams has always been the same: is I'm not going to study, I'm not going to read, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to go take it, and then I'll see where I'm short, and then I'll go, because I'm not going to read all this fucking stuff. You know, I'll go take it first, and then when I fail, they'll tell me the areas to go look at, and then I'll go study on that. But I always end up getting like a 71, which is like I think a 70 is failing or something like that. I always get just enough, to be able to not have to go do all that stuff. So I'm perfectly happy not getting a 99 on an exam, because the fucking certification looks the same for everybody. But that's my strategy. Go take it first, and almost every time I end up passing it by this much.
Yeah.
Because I know all you guys that write these questions, so I can already predict your answers. I know.
I'm not involved in writing, as in one of the decisions I made it was a year before last, actually, because it traveled through last year. I've decided I'm not writing any more exams.
No.
Because, yeah, actually, I won't tell you my opinion why. But
Let's just say it's rather thankless.
Hey?
Let's just say it's rather thankless.
Yeah, it's not worth the investment to the return, if you like. Yeah, sorry, Benedict, about that stuff up on my tweet around times. I've changed time zones. I took that time zone segment from when I was living in London and didn't think to recorrect it. So I'll make sure that's correct for future. Hey, Patty, how are you? Good to have someone else from the United Kingdom on the call with us today. Good to see you here, mate.
Yeah, I'm glad to see these folks join us, because we were pretty much gone for a month. I thought we gave up on it.
I find interesting about a bunch of folks that keep, coming back and as cropping up in the community more and more consistently. I think we're going to see a lot more MVPs come into the program, over the course of this year, because I don't know if you've noticed, but there seems to be a lot more activity, a lot more chatter, a lot more events, a lot more people speaking at things, a lot more people writing content. Paddy comes to mind particularly, and seeing him jump up in the feed there. Great content being released all the time.
Yeah.
I'm expecting we're going to see many more MVPs added to the fold in the coming months.
Well, I think the vast majority of those are probably going to be Power Platform MVPs as opposed to Dynamics MVPs.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see a lot more citizen developer turned MVP, which we saw some of last year. Some of them aren't necessarily citizen developers, but they come from the client side doing that low code, no code stuff for the platform, and now suddenly are MVPs in that. And that is obviously the motion Microsoft wants to drive. So I think they're going to be looking for lots of MVPs in that space. I wouldn't necessarily say it's easier. It'll get harder, but the best time to become an MVP with Microsoft on anything is around new stuff, because they just want noise. They just need noise. They need MVPs.
100%.
Yeah.
And if you understand the concept of an MVP, and Malcolm Gladwell in one of his books spoke a lot about this, is that it's a maven. He used the term maven. I know you've discussed it and doesn't really translate in the US, but it's actually the dictionary definition of this is somebody that talks about another person or another company's product frequently, evangelizes it frequently, but not on the payroll of that other company. And what Microsoft did 20 odd years ago is tapped into this just perfectly with the MVP program. Now they've got 3,000 odd evangelists as such, unpaid, running around the world, creating content and evangelizing their product. And guess what? It just snowballs. In the last 2 years, I have been blown away by the snowball effect that's going on in this community, and people getting sucked into the vortex. And the thing is, it's tangible. Their salaries are increasing. They're getting better job opportunities.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win.
It's a win for everybody. It's so good. So good.
Well, I will say, and you and I have had this discussion before, and I don't know if it's a US thing or if it's a Steve thing, but I've always thought of Maven as associated with female. That there's no such thing as a male maven. They're females. But that could be a US thing.
Go read a dictionary. Go read a dictionary.
That could just be my ignorance. Which
So Rachel,
dictionary?
what is
The New Zealand Abridged Dictionary?
That's probably right. Hey, that's probably right. Rachel's saying here, is it worth taking beta exams currently? Yeah, definitely take beta exams. They're brilliant because they're generally massively reduced. And
does it count?
No, isn't so? Yeah, I think they do count. Yeah, in fact, they do count. So what happens is how beta exams works. Let's say a pool of people, 50, maybe 100, all take the exam, right? And they look at the results and go, okay, what's the mean of the results? And they go, okay, this is going to be the line that everybody needs to step over if they're going to pass this exam. So it's not based on the exact number of questions because it's got to do with how technically hard is it, how rounded is your knowledge, a whole range of things. So, right? So what's that step line? So the beta sets the baseline for the pass mark. So when they go, okay, this is the pass mark, then retrospectively, all those people that are over the line in the beta, you're in, you got to pass. All those below it, you need to resit.
I gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. Now, what happens if, I would imagine sometimes they put one of those beta exams out, 100 people take it, and every single one of them pass it with flying colors, and they knew it was too easy. Then they back into the exam and make it harder?
Yeah, so they realize then, hang on a second, this is child's play. This is not validating expertise.
Or the opposite, if nobody could pass the damn thing.
Yeah, so yeah, and that's one of the other issues that, they'll have questions that just, you can be a genius and you get it wrong because it's so convoluted, if you like, in the way the question is. And so even those questions get re-examined and said, hang on a second, this is so edge, it's not even worth, examining on.
I know I've seen exam questions where it said select the correct answer, and there were definitely more than one correct answer. Yeah. Not in the opinion of whoever wrote the question, but in my opinion, there were more than one correct answer. The worst is when they say select the best answer.
Yeah. Because
I might think the other one's a better answer. You know what I mean? But again, all he needs is 71. So. Well, what else do we want to talk about?
So you had one of the items you had on your list was around what's the story with team licensing and what's your concerns around it?
So I had some conversations recently, again, with people who would know and talking about some things. And I guess really the only thing I could tell people right now, because it's all too early in NDA, but is that if you've got customers out there on the team member licenses, and particularly the second round of team member licenses, because if you guys recall, they've been team member for a long time. And then about a year ago, they launched another new license called for team members, slightly different wording. But that license came with a different set of restrictions in the licensing guide. The old license was kind of a legacy team member that lots of enterprise had on EAs and stuff like that, but they stopped selling that when they launched this new one a year ago. You could only buy that if you already had it, right? You could add and reduce, but you couldn't buy that anymore. You could only buy this new license as of a year ago. Well, looking at the new license and the old license, it didn't seem like there was any difference. I mean, you could still, there was no technical enforcement on it. There's they tightened up the wording in the licensing guide about what you could and couldn't do, but you could still do anything you wanted. So that's coming. They've said that's coming for a while, and I have it on good authority that is absolutely coming. And I would say if you have customers out there on the newer license that are knowingly in violation or not knowingly in violation, they're going to wake up one day in the very near future and shit ain't going to work. So you definitely need to be looking at those, talking to those customers about, let's get what you're doing with this license either in line with what you're allowed to do, or let's move you on to another license that lets you do this. And we've got some customers doing that. I've got one customer started with a ton of team member licenses and some enterprise licenses, wants to be in compliance, and has slowly, as people have advanced what they're doing with the product, he's called me up and say, drop a team member and add an enterprise. So he's making that move over gradually. As far as the legacy licenses, I mean, once those things renew at renewal, and some of these EAs are multiple year, but whenever that renewal date comes, they won't be able to renew that license. That license is going to go away. So that's how they're going to get rid of the old one. Is eventually they'll just get renewed out, and everybody will be on the new one, and they'll have enforcement. So, word to the wise, anybody out there got customers that are taking advantage? Even worse, I know some ISVs that built solutions on that license that absolutely are not going to function. It was,
Yeah.
and it's funny because I think a lot of people took the opinion that, well, they'll never enforce it.
Yeah.
And I could do it. So, and I can make more money if I do it on this license. And they went out and built their solution on that license. And now, okay, I hope you made good money on that solution, because you're about to have to reinvest.
Yeah. So Benedict says a good tip also the normal app license or just the team. So this is just relating to team at the moment.
Exactly.
But it's interesting that you're thinking about that app license, because who knows?
Well, the app license, and this is interesting because app license is not a Dynamics 365 license. That's a PowerApps license.
Yeah.
Team member is not a PowerApps license. That's a Dynamics 365 license. Yet they both run on top of CDS. So it's kind of which door you're coming in. And I mean, you can mix and match, right? You can have a customer stood up on Dynamics 365 with some team member licenses that builds an app within Dynamics 365, not utilizing any of the restricted entities. And now they basically built themselves, they carved out a Power App without restrictions, that now suddenly that app pass could be used for that. So you can get these real interesting. I was talking to a partner the other day, bringing us into a project, like Office 365 partner. He said, so I want to handle the licensing. And he's thinking there's money in the licensing. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, you don't want to get anywhere near that fucking licensing. I mean, just the effort it takes to figure out, to marry up the users, what they're going to do, what's going to be built, and which licenses are going to be necessary is a big challenge. And they got rid of the plan, right? Plan's gone. That used to be the catch-all for lots of partners. I'll just sell the plan, got everything. Well, there's no plan. I actually have to think about it. So licensing is going to continue for the foreseeable future to be a science of its own that you need to understand, or just oversell your customer, which, that's not a good strategy either. They'll figure that out eventually. And now suddenly they're looking for another partner, didn't oversell them. Yeah. That's what will happen, I'm sure, with the partner I'm talking to on this project who wants to handle licensing. It's going to be a cluster. I mean, we're continuously with customers taking people off of licenses, putting them on others. We got these people on Sales Professional. We're realizing, you know what? They're not using anything but account contact and our custom entities. Let's carve that off. Let's put them on these $10 passes. We're moving people back and forth, and licenses are continuously. It's a moving target with customers now. We're making licensing changes daily. Daily, we have a customer call up, or we're working with a customer and say, hey, you know what? If we build it this way, we can move you off of these licenses onto these. Constant. But I think that one of the things you and I were talking about earlier is kind of this law of unintended consequences. And we've talked about how Microsoft continues to get bit in the ass by this unintended consequences of their actions.
Yeah.
As MVPs, they're frequently talking to us in either individually or in groups to get our feedback on some ideas, but all too often those ideas are already baked and ready to launch. And they're just really trying to figure out what kind of heat are they going to get. But the team member was a good example. I mean, in hindsight, that was a horrible idea to release a $8 or $10 license or less on EA that didn't have any technical enforcement of any kind.
But Microsoft, they've never had technical enforcement, right? They've never had any ability in any version.
They also never had a $10 all-you-can-eat license either.
Yeah.
So the whole licensing changed faster than they were ready for it, and now it made this big, huge problem that they have to fix. I'm sure they weren't thinking when they came up with this idea that, hey, this is a great idea. In a year, we're going to be totally fucked by this idea. Nobody said anything at that table. Well, now we're looking at this Now we're looking at this $10 app pass. And now I'm going to go back to predictions and concerns. Listening to them talk about the app pass, wherever you see them writing about it, when you see them up on stage talking about the app pass, they're presenting it as an entry. It's an entry level license for simple needs, so that we don't want to have customer have to buy a big ass license for a simple app. It's a get us in the door kind of a deal. But there's no restrictions on what the hell you can build on the Power Platform other than utilizing first-party entities, which if you don't, you build whatever the hell you want. You could build the most sophisticated, you could build a more sophisticated application than their sales app if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And stick it on a $10 license. Well, there's folks out there doing that. We are not going that deep, but we've built applications that could replace their applications. So
yeah.
How long do they watch people move off of a $95 or $65 license onto a 10 before they decide, okay, we need to throttle this? We need to put some parameters around what this $10 pass can do. And right now the parameter is it can only access one app. Well, that's fine, because let's stick everything in one app. But they've got more things they could bring to that in the way of some restrictions and some limitations, and start trying to tighten that thing up. And technical enforcement, they'll have that all sorted out for the team members, so it'd be pretty easy to apply that over.
Yeah.
But again, they'll be reacting to a problem they created.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a hard in a way to predict everything, right? And the way things are going to be used. It's so much of this is suck and see. You just don't know how the world's going to interpret, or how they're going to utilize it, or how they're going to use it. Whether you err on the side and think people all have the best intentions, or that everybody's out to take every chance they get. There's a medium between that. So it's very hard, I think.
So I'll tell you what, there's a blog.
Hindsight's a massive, is very advantageous to us. But when you do see them repeat the scenario again, then you're just like, well, often it's right, new people, different day, different team, new people. They didn't learn from the lessons of the past because they weren't involved in them.
There's a blog that you can go back and read some of the old posts on when some of these things were, before they were even launched, that was predicting the nightmare that was going to happen, and every one of them happened. It's called stevemordue.com. Sometimes I'll go back and read some of these old posts I wrote saying, this is going to be a fucking disaster. And then, here we are. Okay.
Oh,
I saw it. And you guys are sitting in the office at Advana around a fucking table, 50 of you talking. And I'm like out here hearing it bits and pieces. And it's obvious this is going to be a problem. How is it? How is this? I'm certainly not smarter than all these people. I think they just, I don't know.
No. So I tell you, this is just amazing what you just said there, that you sit outside that and you can see it, but they can't. I just read a book that I finished last week called Talking to Strangers. It's by Malcolm Gladwell. It's his latest book. And in there, what they did is research on judges in the US being able to judge whether somebody that came up to the bar, for an offense, whether they would re-offend or not. And they felt that, for a judge to make a good decision, they got to look somebody in their eye that can judge their character and all this. And what they did is they took all this evidence from all history of all the case laws, everything that happened, and the outcome. Did someone become a recidivist offender and things like that? And guess what they found? An algorithm can decide with a better accuracy than a person looking the person in the eye in the same room. So an algorithm looking at the
I don't doubt that for a minute.
So what you just described is that, right? You get into a group, there's 25 people around a table and they're discussing, and they're making these judgment calls around a whole bunch of other external things, but missing the kind of facts, the data, the outcome, and the computer predicts it more accurately. And what you just described there is that you're sitting outside the room, you hear what they've said and go, you know what? That's going to be a cluster. That ain't going to work. Yeah. And you don't have that dynamics of in the room. And to a degree, this decision by committee and stuff can sometimes just give absolutely stupid results.
Well, I think that they sometimes, especially in a group, they'll over focus on all sorts of rationalizing starts to start convincing themselves of what needs to occur, and then suddenly the group starts getting convinced that that's what's going to occur. They lose all sense of reality, and then we'll hear this stuff on the outside for the first time, and we're like, we weren't conditioned with all that rationalization they gave us. It's funny because then when I get on a phone with some of these folks about some of these stupid ideas and they start giving me the rationalization they came up with, you could tell when they're saying it, they're like, yeah, you know what, this is sounding kind of stupid. I don't know what we were thinking. But they go with it anyway. So yeah, Vlad's at Benedict, my partner Vlad is at that same FastTrack boot camp in London. So
yeah. So yeah, Rachel, the FastTrack Bootcamp is a course run by the FastTrack team at Microsoft, and all their global experience of moving customers from on-prem to cloud and doing these mass migrations. They then train future architects to be able to do this themselves. Steve, weren't you talking something about not using FastTrack to move from on-prem to cloud?
Yeah, well, we have a customer, and actually it looks like we may end up getting lucky on it, but we recently got hired by a professional baseball team who wants to make a move from on-premise to online. They're on the latest version of on-premise, but they're missing a whole bunch of goodies that they want, and so they need to make that move. And we're looking at the cost. They've got a pretty extensive deployment. They got a bunch of stored procedures. They got everything going on in there, so it's not going to be inexpensive to just move them over short of FastTrack.
Yeah.
But they technically don't have enough users to qualify for FastTrack. So now we're looking at really, I mean, I told the guy, I said, I know it's expensive, but the worst part is you have to look at it as a tax. I mean, this is a tax, because when we're done moving this thing and rewriting your stored procedures as plugins and all this sort of stuff and have it stood up over here and your people use it, it's going to pretty much be the same. A shit ton of money to get it. It's a tax. You're paying a tax to move from on-premise to online. And I think that's really what FastTrack was designed to try and reduce or minimize that tax, because lots of people just say, fuck that, we'll just stay where we are. But, it's a small team, right? Just like, 25 people on that team. It's not a big team that does FastTrack. They can only handle so many. And of course, they're going to worry about the big ones first. So, I was going to be talking a little bit about having to bring in third-party tools. As a partner on the outside, making a migration from on-premise to online, we've got to take that stuff out over here, and we got to take it back in through the front door. FastTrack, they can copy that SQL database, right? And they're behind the door. They can just copy it over. Boom. Oh, here's some errors. Go fix them. Copy it again. A few more errors. Copy it again. You're done. No data migration. I mean, we're not migrating. These migrations are killers. So I'm hopeful, and that's one of the reasons why I got Vlad going through this boot camp, is that they give us the tooling and give us the ability when we're certified to really dramatically increase that 25-person internal team they have with every partner out there that wants to be able to do this. It's, again, I think it's an opportunity for a short time, because eventually everybody will be online. So, but there's still a ton of customers to move. And right now the pain is just so high. And I tell you what, no customer wants to pay taxes of any kind. And a straight lift and shift from on-premise to online is an expensive maneuver, and it's a tax. So, and I prefer to get that cost as low as possible. I mean, obviously we make money doing it, but I prefer customers happily pay me the money instead of begrudgingly pay me the money, because they're getting more, they're getting new, they're getting additional benefit, they're getting more ROI, they're getting more, better process, they're getting all the goodness, and they're always happy to pay for that. But migration, nobody wants to pay for this. They have to, but they don't want to. So that's my soapbox on that one.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Benny was saying, but you could have FastTrack also for new implementations. We had it in the last customer because it was the first marketing implementation in our country. Yeah, so that's interesting. And I've seen a bit of that. And I think there must be a bit of a crossover between Microsoft consulting services
Yeah.
and FastTrack on some of these newer type projects, because typically Microsoft consulting services have the new implementations, but I'm wondering if they're just bringing in, I'm just wondering if they're using FastTrack as maybe to get away from the old legacy feel of around MCS that a lot of partners have towards MCS.
Maybe. I mean, I think the FastTrack team is, I mean, it's like I said, it's a small group and it's pretty strategic in its goal. It doesn't fix things for you. I mean, it will, you need to have a partner at the moment, engaged, or yourself, because they're gonna lift your SQL database and they're gonna drop it onto an online environment and see what breaks. And then you got to go fix all that. Somebody's got to go fix all that shit. I don't see MCS wanting to do that. That's more of a partner thing to go in and fix, JavaScript, where the hell's not working, fix it. And then they're going to push a button and copy it over again. Obviously, if you're on an older version, they're going to push it through the versions on Azure as well. Some of the people that are on older on-premise version, their FastTrack's going to push them through each version, and each one of those you've got to go through and do whatever fixes need to be fixed. In this particular case with our customer, they're already on the latest version of on-premise, so it'll be a little bit of a simpler process. But I don't see MCS wanting to do that kind of work. It's not a huge value add. And if there's enough partners out there and they provide them, I mean, it's almost the opposite. You're now wanting to give partners the tooling to kind of take them out of it. And I know that was, you and I both know from listening to.
The tooling was meant to come about, wasn't it? There was an intention, but that's never ever eventuated.
No, but I think that's what this motion is around the FastTrack certified partner, is to be able to give them access to the tools. You hearing different?
In the F&O space, there's always been this tool that
LCS.
Just last year got moved over to as in the entire team has it now, which was designed to lift and shift as people on AX.
Yeah, lifecycle services.
Yeah, that's it. LCS. And so LCS is actually the smarts, the technical piece, the smarts as in from the multiple server deployment in Azure and then migrating your instances across testing, etc. That's the
FastTrack uses that too.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that the bit to do it with CE or CRM on premise or anything has never been brought into production. I've seen it in non-production, I've seen it as an example like 3 years ago, but it's never been made available to partners and brought to market.
You and I have both heard James Phillips speak publicly and privately to groups about a big priority he has is moving these on-premise customers to the cloud. I mean, it's one thing to be out there generating net new customers in the cloud. That's awesome. Keep doing that. But he's looking at this big pile of old customers that he has to support that are not getting the best experience that they could get. I mean, the worst scenario is some on-premise Dynamics customer who's not happy with being on-premise decides to move to Salesforce. His move to the cloud is to a different product. So he's highly motivated to get those customers to move to their online version of their product. So, providing the tooling, providing these boot camps, pushing these partners through, I can see that as being a high priority motion for him.
Yeah, definitely. So anyhow, we'll see what happens, see what their plans are in that respect. What are you thinking? What are you hoping for in the roadmap this year?
I think we're going to see, so this is the year where those Canvas and model-driven authoring experiences merge into a single experience, which we're still all kind of struggling to imagine because they're so completely different experiences now. We've got, and this is also the year where everybody online gets pushed over to unified interface at some point throughout this year. And there was something about an announcement about it being like October or something. Well, October's the end of it, but that doesn't mean you got till October. If you go to, do you recall the site offhand? Run one, or I don't know. You can look it up, do a Google search. But just because if you're sitting on classic interface, or even a portion of what you've got's on classic UI, you don't have till October necessarily. I mean, I'm getting notices on, because we got a lot of instances out there in development and customer instances. I get notices every day saying your organization will be transitioned to the unified interface on. I saw one earlier today said February 14th.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like 3 weeks from now. Within 3 weeks. I mean, that's not October. So
Yeah.
anybody
Yeah,
was
that's
saying
right. That's right.
oh, anybody that was hearing October and thinking they've got till October, no, you better go dig up that site because you don't have till October. Now, I don't know if I could reach out and ask them to extend that. I didn't have a need to try on any of these. We've been building on the new UI for quite a while now, and I've already transitioned pretty much everybody. But
that's what I just dropped in the link there about run one, and that's just what you're saying about what you're thinking of.
Benedict,
The
Benedict
unified interface happening this year.
sorry.
Sorry, the unified experience between these.
Benedict is thinking that they were told that they have to approve those dates, but that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing an email coming in saying your organization will be transitioned. There's no click to link here to approve.
Yeah,
Now,
sorry. What I think Benedict is saying there, it's approved, but the last date of approval, as in if it hasn't been done by October, it's capped out by then, right? Isn't that the way you see it, Steve? That's through to that October date.
so I've just pulled up the email. Changes coming, automatic transition to unified interface, blah, blah, blah. Here's the environment. Here's the planned transition date. Blah, 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 blah. Access the scheduling portal. This doesn't say anything about approve, and I haven't had a reason to follow this path down, but my thinking is if I don't do anything at all, this org's going to be transitioned on February 21st. So I don't think it's so much I approve this date as I'm assuming if I jumped into that portal, I could potentially stall it. But either way, you need to know if you don't even know about it, all of a sudden you're going to come in one day and you're on unified interface, ready or not.
That's it.
And to be honest, well, I guess it depends on where they're coming from, but that's not a huge transition. I mean, the biggest challenge we're finding with unified interface for customers is really just the forms all have been rearranged. And what made sense in a linear, scrolling motion looks different in a tabular motion, horizontal, and it's just moving shit around. It hasn't been a real big deal for any of us.
Patty says there you can extend it twice with business justification, and but that's within the parameter of October. It is switched off for everybody. There's not going to be an extension beyond that October date for anybody.
Well, unless you're some big swinger customer, because they make exceptions for the big customers all the damn time. That's part of why they have so many problems all the time, is because some enterprise customer says, we still need the old Outlook client, and suddenly they're, they're undeprecating the Outlook com client because of, pressure. So we'll see. But I really wish Microsoft would become more consistent with, here's the date that we're going to do this, and then fucking do it on that date, because then people would realize that they have to act, they have to move. But everybody, especially the bigger customers, they all know that, so that absolutely rock solid line in the sand date from Microsoft don't mean shit. I'm just going to call my AE and say, hey, we'll start looking at this now. Exactly.
Yeah. So one thing I've noticed lately is I've been using Dynamics quite a bit, right? Because I got a startup I'm involved with. So I'm actually using it to run my life day to day, probably more than I have in my entire life. So I'm an end user as such of it.
Yeah.
And what I can't get over is how performant this new UI is, like how fast it is, how much better it is. Like I remember the days in CRM when online came about, and I suppose being back in New Zealand, it's reminded me of that, where honestly, the time it took to pages to load and stuff would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
From all the productivity it could bring, the actual just speed of it ate your productivity. I'm not seeing that now. I'm seeing it massively performant. I love the new UI, as in from a user perspective, it is so much better than the old UI in my experience. I wish I'd tidy up a few things like around email, the email templating tool in it. And like I use this because of the 90-day mentoring challenge. I use that old functionality, and then I'm using, you know, what Scott Dorr's built in SalesSpark for templating. I'm just like, this is light and day experience. One is just a natural way of writing emails and what Scott's built. The other one is like, you got to learn how to, you know, be a semi-developer to know how to just slug into an email. And I mean,
Well,
you know,
and somebody here recently was complaining about the fact that they actually have that tool. They have a Scott-like email editor in the application, but it is not. I think it was Eliza was pointing out that, you know, I can see it here, but I can't see it over here or here or here. It's like their email authoring and templating experience in Dynamics is vastly inconsistent. But there is a similar, you know, reasonable. You know, you just have to assume it's coming. You have to assume that, you know, there's still. I mean, we still are bouncing back into legacy stuff for a bunch of stuff that they just haven't gotten moved yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they have to prioritize what's the most important thing, you know, and hey, people can still import data using the old data import wizard. So we'll get back to that later. We've got bigger fires, you know what I mean? Yeah, Benedict's talking about in the Sales Hub. Yeah. So, and you know, part of that move to the reason for the new UI, in addition to being responsive, which they needed to get it to. I remember talking to, oh God, what was the guy that was running all of that stuff before he left like a year ago to go?
Prem? No.
Prem, yeah, Prem. Prem said, it's just kind of like the old Star Trek, right? We're giving it all she's got, Scotty, and it's as fast as it'll go. They squeezed everything they could squeeze. I mean, caching the shit out of stuff. I mean, everything they could possibly do with the old forms model to get it to go as quickly as it could. And it was just still woefully slow compared to other.
Yeah.
You know, when you were talking about how pages used to take forever to load back then, well, they did for everything, right? Everybody's pages took forever to load, so we didn't think anything about it. But then as people, you know, started coming up with better solutions, better technology, the page start loading really quick. Now suddenly you look at this page, it's perfectly fine before, and now it's like, fuck, this is slow. So they didn't have any choice. The only way to get speed, and while they're at it, you know, let's get responsiveness, was to completely rebuild that whole damn thing. That was massive. I think that was massive.
Yeah, and this is where the whole React.js comes in, right? Which came from Facebook, right? They needed, for their billions of users, to be a highly responsive interface, and so I think it's smart that that's been adopted and used, because any business user wants a highly responsive interface, right? They don't want their interface slowing them down in their day-to-day activities. And, you know, if the software is not local on your machine, you're not going to have a high responsive interface unless you got some good tech doing it. And all that legacy stuff was built way before this era of speed that we're in now and expectations that we have now. What's
Benedict made a comment here. I guess you're still talking about that new email authoring experience being in the Sales Hub, but not anywhere else. And this is an example of one of the things that I have been pushing the team on, because, you know, we're focused on the model-driven Power App primarily as our ISV solution. We're not focused on the first party. And my battle with that team, which has been almost weekly ever since we went down this path, was trying to get features of make that available over here, make that available over here. And slowly but surely we've gotten, we got the Outlook client, we got portals, we're slowly but surely we're getting things. And the email editor is one that I think I just asked Charles about, well, before I kind of went on hiatus, when am I going to get that email editor, you know, in the Power Platform? And part of it has to do with some of it's politics, right? Who built it? Well, the sales team who owns the sales app built the email editor.
Right.
Okay, so you know, they kind of own it, and they would prefer not to necessarily give it to the PowerApps community because, well, it's ours. It comes with our.
That's ridiculous. You're one company.
It comes with our license, though.
Yeah.
We built it for our app, which has a $65 or $95 price, depending on which one you get. And it's a feature. If you remember the pod I had with Charles a while back, where he said something about how he feels, because I said something about this $10 license, these Power Apps are just going to obliterate first party. Nobody's going to want them at all. And he said, I got to disagree with you there, because I still think there'll be significant people out there that will appreciate the value and the features and the logic and the power of the first party apps. Well, this is part of that story, is let's keep this on the first party app. If you want that nice email editor, well, there's another reason. We'll just add that to the list of reasons for you to go drop 65 or 95 instead of 10, because you can't have that over here. But they had that same thing with Outlook. When the Outlook app, only available with first party,
Yep.
but enough pushing and banging and blog writing and making noise, and okay, fine. I'm not just talking about me by myself. I mean, other people, plenty of people are involved in jumping in and helping push that over. So, but I Charles did tell me that we want that to be there. He didn't say it was coming. But he said,
to be available everywhere.
Yeah, he wants that to be available everywhere. I mean,
Charles, a fundamental UI type thing that doesn't involve any kind of like smart logic. Email editors, you can go buy third-party tools of these things now. It's not like rocket science. This is just core stuff. You'd expect it to be there. Right? It's not some fancy scheduling board that uses a bazillion lines of code to, work out some logic or something like that. I understand. License that separately. Yeah. This is just fundamental day-to-day activity type stuff that, come on, should be in the core, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I actually believe that Charles was sincere about that comment. I think that was maybe a politically correct comment, because Charles is responsible for the citizen application platform. Now, it just so happens that Dynamics 365 runs on that platform that he's responsible for, but he's not responsible for the enterprise sales application. He's not responsible for the PSA solution. They run on top of the platform he's responsible for. But what he is responsible for is the Power Apps, including Model and Canvas, that sit on that thing. And he talked about how he really saw the Power Apps at that inflection point, like SharePoint was, when it suddenly went from this novelty thing to just blowing up everywhere.
Yeah.
He wasn't talking about the first party apps blowing up everywhere. So if he wants that to happen, if he wants these Power Apps to continue to explode the way they already are, and frankly, a lot of the reason they're exploding now is because they're relatively easy to put together something that's not that sophisticated. It opened up a whole new market that didn't exist before. It's easy to gain market share in a market where you didn't have any footprint at all. You had no chance. And now suddenly, you've got this other way to get into that market. Mm-hmm. But as people start building more of these things, their desire for features and more sophistication and more tools are gonna come on board. So he's I'm sure he would love to see the first party apps succeed as well, but he don't get paid on a first party apps.
Yeah.
But I guess if the sales team owns the email app, he'll have to use his influence as the owner of the platform that it runs on and convince James and whoever else is involved to let's make this available. And every time he asks James, oh, absolutely, we're going to make it all available. But,
Yeah, there's constraints in play, right? There's constraints.
Politics. Yeah. Politics.
Model-driven app in Dynamics 365 rather than Dynamics CE. Naming conventions. Yeah, I've heard someone say they should go to one of the, cosmetics industries and find somebody that knows how to name lipsticks and get them to come, because you can look, there's like 1,000 lipsticks and all of them have got like, wow, really creative names, and you're just like, wow, Midnight Blush and, as an example. And yet they keep coming out with weird names or very long names. Like they're not names, they're like sentences.
Yeah, they're like descriptions.
Their current Power App license, it's like 6 words long.
I think that sometimes when they come out with a name for a product, at the moment in time they're coming out with the name, it seems very appropriate. Yeah. I mean, not all the time. Obviously, some of them are just nuts. But when they come out with it at that moment in time, it seems appropriate. But then that product evolves, and then suddenly that product splits into 4 different pieces, and suddenly that name doesn't work anymore. because the development and it keeps going. Engineering keeps building and breaking stuff apart and rearranging it. Suddenly the name doesn't fit. So it seems like they're constantly having to change names because the name doesn't work anymore. Not to say they haven't done their share of launching a name that didn't make sense the day they launched the name, but a lot of these things, I think, this end up outgrowing their name too damn quick, you know, and especially when they get real specific, you know.
P1 and P2 are real simple. Now the naming conventions around Power App licensing is just.
Yeah. Well, I mean, P2 is going to go away, right? That's going to be just called what, Unlimited, PowerApps Unlimited or something like that. And then we had the pass.
That makes sense. But what's the single app license called?
Pass. It's not even a license. It's not even sold or used the same way a license is. It's an app pass. It's a consumption model, is what it is. It's actually a consumption model as opposed to a license model. It's a consumption model. So you buy, and as a matter of fact, you buy them in the capacity area where you would go buy additional storage, or you would buy additional flows. That's where you buy app passes, and you buy additional app passes. It's a capacity construct as opposed to a licensing construct. They still have to work a little bit on how those things get assigned, but essentially you get this pool of passes, and you've got this app that you built. Right now you can do it with the Canvas app pretty easy. You just share that with someone, and it provided you've got enough passes in place that someone can start using that app and they're consuming one of those passes.
Yeah.
So it'll be the same on the model-driven side soon. Right now, you can do it on the model-driven side, but it requires, you know, a little more hoop jumping. I think I wrote about it recently, a few more steps. But they're gonna get rid of those steps and make it as easy as, you know, you just share an app, and as long as you got passes, you know, it's capacity. As long as you got enough passes for the person you're going to share it with, you're good. If you don't, you got to go buy some more passes.
Yeah.
We're
at top of the hour. We're about to close and wrap. Any predictions for 2020?
Shit, not yet. I haven't even fucking woke up. I mean, I just came out of the cave here a week ago. Let's save that for a near future episode, but we're going to be seeing each other in March.
Barcelona, right? We're going to be speaking at Barcelona. It was interesting, actually. I spoke yesterday on my 90-day mentoring challenge. I was talking about one.
How long is that, by the way? How long is that?
No, what do you mean?
You're 90 days. Sorry, just fucking with
you. So, and I was talking about somebody had contacted me that is speaking this week in Poland at an event, and a lot of people were going, "Oh, it was what's his name? Ivan Fenko." They thought that was because I said this person's never spoken at an event, and they're like, "I haven't spoken heaps." So there was a bit of the chatter going on. It definitely wasn't Ivan that I was speaking to, for all of you that were wondering about that. But this individual, as I say, is doing his first presentation. Absolutely fantastic. I won't say his name because he hasn't let me mention it. Definitely not Ivan. He is another Ukrainian, but definitely not Ivan is doing this. It's somebody else from the Ukraine that's recently moved to Poland. And this is his first gig speaking. And man, his presentation was phenomenal. For his first one, cab off the rank, he's talking on PCF, like detailed on PCF, cutting code, all this kind of stuff. Amazing stuff. I wish I could be at the session live, but really impressed to see, you know, as I said, this new generation of folks coming through that are smart people doing some incredible things.
Yeah, I think sometimes new speakers are actually pretty damn good because they're nervous, so they focus, they prepare, they make sure their deck, you know, they probably over prepare to make sure it's going to be, and you know, guys like us that have done it all the time, we probably just get up there and spew crap if people are bored with our sessions. We got to make them funny or stupid or something, but you know, just keep them entertained because we don't put enough effort into preparing for it. And these guys have spent, you know, I mean, for Barcelona, I'll probably start preparing whatever the hell I got to talk about. I don't know, maybe a couple of days before I leave, maybe on the flight.
See, not me. Do you know how many sessions I got at Barcelona? Six sessions I got notified over the last couple of weeks. I'm like, did I sign up for 6 sessions? This doesn't
I told you my new strategy is I just want to be a panelist. I don't have to produce anything. I don't have to create any decks. I'm doing it to show up and throw up, you know?
Mate, these 6 sessions, generally for a 1-hour session, it takes me, I timed it the year before last, takes me 12 hours of prep time for a 1-hour presentation.
Well, that's probably my problem because it takes me about 20 minutes of prep time for an hour long.
There's the difference. So I know I've got a shit ton of work to do this month of February coming up to be all prepped for that event.
Yeah, but you like all that fancy animations and stuff.
Oh, no. This is just getting my content and story right. But yeah, I do like it to be tidy. But
and you know, you want it all to make sense and be logical, have people understand it, and all kinds of, you know, high bar stuff.
This is my last event though of the year. I'm after I've done Barcelona, I'm finished doing travel and speaking at events for the rest of this year. Done.
That's pretty easy to say. We're not even at the end of January yet.
Yeah.
You blocked out the whole rest of the year. You've decided today.
That's the only caveat. I will do more if they're paid.
Sure.
I'm sick and tired. Like
you're going to Summit either way, right?
I'm going to Summit. I've booked a Summit, and once I come back from San Fran, because I'm going via San Fran back to Auckland after that, that's it. The rest of the trips I'm doing for the year have got to really be worth my while. There's no more doing it off my own off my own coin anymore in the way I'm going to do it. I got more other things to do with life than keep paying my way for all these events and stuff. So that's my plan.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I show up at those events just because you don't want to disappear. You know, you kind of, I mean, you don't want to just, I mean, people are, you know, expecting that you would be there, and you're almost noticeable by your absence. For example, at Biz Application Summit, I think you'd be noticeably absent if you didn't go. You know, some of these others, you know, on Saturdays and stuff like that. I mean, if they're convenient, that's one thing if you're already around, but yeah, no, I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm done. Anyhow,
we're after hours.
I'm gonna clip the stream. Thanks everybody for coming on. We're doing it every week from this point. Ciao, ciao.
Have a good one.